Hi, good evening. Welcome. My name is Obindako. I I want to share with you today what I call the importance of engineering, science, technology, mathematics, those kind of courses to the development of our dear continent, Africa, to the development of our country. When some things are not clearly defined from the beginning, the misunderstanding of it can create many years of stagnation. If it's not clearly defined and understood, many years those things will still be beating us. And I think one of the things that we still have not fixed them together when it comes to our development is science, is technology, is engineering, is mathematics, their relevance to our development as a people. They say that in sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana was the first country to have had independence from the British. And the British and the Europeans, the Dutch, they have been here since maybe the 14th, the 13th, the 15th century, they're about 14 something that they came. The Dutch came, and then all of them came, and they came to stay for centuries, maybe, for 4 centuries or so. Over 400 years, these guys were here. And it's not like when they came, they had developed. It's not that when they came, they had, everything developed and they were successful and we were backward and we didn't know what to do. I think that some things were a bit more close, They were still very much rural. They had not industrialized. They were not manufacturing. Those things were just as common as anything, and Africa was not that far from them. Then they came and they introduced some kind of education to us. And if you hear the people who they educated, they really did not focus on science, technology, engineering, mathematics that much. It was more of the literature, it was more of the speaking, it was more of the law. I don't know whether it was a strategy. I don't know. I have no idea. I can say that. But when they started Achimota School and those schools that they started to set out in Legon and those schools, the most prominent people in our country, they claim that they went to Achimota School or Kwabuchi or things like that. And majority of them, I don't hear them being engineers, mathematicians, things that could have contributed majorly, immensely to industrialization, to manufacturing and things like that. So there's a missing link and there's a huge misunderstanding, at least among the Africans, as to manufacturing, as to science, as to industrialization, as to technology, as to mathematics. And where do we start? Where do we break? Because the fact is that sometimes when you have not studied it and when you have not read it, you may think that all the world have been industrialized for thousands of years. But if you really look up until when they came and took a lot of our people, to feed because they needed power, they needed manpower. And when they took a lot of them to go and work on the farms, work in the railways and work on those things, that was power. They used those, after a while, then they started, because really, if the history is right, then they are saying that the British started industrialization. At least from the time that the steam engine was re-engineered and commercialized to produce some kind of power to feed the machine parts that they were making to feed the machine tools that were manufacturing the parts to feed all the various industries that they were focusing on. So up until that, they were just like us, peasants working with hand tools in their farms, in their mining, whether they were working with a steel component, whether they were working on the farm, whatever that they were not producing a mass. So the difference probably would have been when they started to industrialize and manufacture. If they were so much for our development, they should have also done that, because after all, we were a colony. Most of the countries in Africa were colonies. So the time that they were building the locomotives and the things that they were building to power their industries, I think that they should have done the same thing, possibly here. Then we would have been on the same path. Even that the industries they were not here, and then the education, So the education, the science, the technology, the engineering, without it, it will be very difficult for any group of people to really develop, because much of its development is really just trying to make a lot of things yourself to feed the things that you need. So your ability to handle your sewage system, your ability to handle the food, the transport, the railways, the cars, the clothes, the things that you are going to produce through industry. Those kind of minds, you have to prepare them. And most of those would have to come from the sciences, the engineering, the mathematics, the technology kind of thing. So now, presently, if you see, they have moved from just the steam engine kind of, industrialization. They went, they got to a point where they had electricity, and they started to move it to, everybody. And just recently, just at the dawn of the other century, internet came, and data and digitization. Now a lot of it has changed. The point is, where do we start as a people? Because it appears to be complex. Can we ever industrialize? Can we ever be on our own? At least the Chinese got on board, and they are really doing well. The Indians got some hint, and they are also doing a bit well. Even apartheid South Africa, got some bit of it. So there are a lot of things that South Africa produces. Brazil got some bit of it. But countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, SAB, the place that they took a lot of the slaves, they are still struggling. It appears to me that just about the time that the whole world was trying to industrialize and try to use science, technology, engineering to develop and to create prosperity, that was just about the time that they had also, destroyed the people who were left out of the industrialization. So they have really destroyed them, and it's a whole, you can debate it, you can fight it, but those are it. Because from where I may be biased, and maybe there may be other school of thought, but for me, just about the time that they were trying to industrialize, that was the time that they were also trying to export a lot of these guys, and they had done that maybe two centuries before they even started to use the local something, the steam engine and things like that. So if you bear with me a little, you cannot develop a continent until you have a good number of your people with very much with technical skill. And this would have to be done by the authorities. They would have to have a strategy to say that this is where we want to go for the next 100 years. And we have to plan to know the kind of workforce that we will need. What part do you want to take for your people to develop? What part do you want to take for your continent to develop? Are you going to go into industrialization, or you are going to go into another plan? Maybe a plan that has never been discovered by anybody, but the essence is that you want to develop and you want to create a lot of things yourself. You want to handle, you want to create prosperity, because without development, the people die early. Diseases that are not meant to kill them will kill them. Life expectancy is reduced when the country is poor. So the moment countries start to get more, start to live better, start to create a lot of things themselves, they start to live, so some of these countries are living now, the average is maybe 80, 90, before they die for the men, and sometimes the women on the average could even go to 95, 100. But when the poor countries, it comes to 40, 35, 60, they are gone. And so it's not like it's not important, it's important, and some of the countries have done it. So when we are able to feed, when we're able to prepare the minds, it should be a strategy of any government to know the percentages of their people that they are sending to school who should come out with some of these trainings, as engineering, as technology, as mathematics, as the sciences, physics, chemistry, things that will fuel industry, and a lot of the minds should be like that. It cannot be when you want to develop as a country and possibly want to develop through industrialization, and then 90% of your people are going to university to go and read accounting, and what is the other one, business administration, cooking. They should be in the minority. They cannot be in the majority as it stands. If you go to Lagos now, a lot of them are doing just the art, philosophy, Greek, religion. It means that we really don't know. So maybe we don't have to industrialize, maybe. But if you really have to go through some of these things to develop, then we would have to have a strategy for it, because the people who came to colonize us, they did it for maybe 400 years or so, and possibly they are still present. I don't know. But at least they did not have the heart to develop us in terms of these courses, so that we could be the ones we could be the ones in charge of our own development. And without the industries, forget about the development. You are just yobbing, and much of it we until we are producing the machines ourselves, until we are producing a lot of the things that will be needed ourselves. Yeah, we just talking. So if you really look, the first so-called industrial revolution just happened around the 70s, with the middle of the 17th, and latter part of the 18th century. That's where much of it happened. And that was the time that they had been in Africa for over 200 years. And so they had destroyed ours, and they were trying to come up with science, technology at their side to develop. So we were not conscious. We were still not awake. And I don't know whether we're still awake. So when they were discovering the steam engine and discovering how to move the gold, the diamond, all the things from Africa to England and to the new land, they said that they developed. So I'm thinking, so why didn't the West, especially Europe or the Americans, why didn't they develop before slavery? Why didn't they industrialize before that? Is it coincidence? I don't know. Maybe they could have done that, at the dawn of maybe 1,000 years before they ever thought of, moving to Africa too. So maybe it's coincidence, I don't know. But it appears to me that industrialization and slavery and colonization have some kind of link. And much of it was that people were looking for power to fuel their farm activities, the cotton farm, things like that. So if you look, they say that it started from England and Great Britain, and then it spread to other parts of Africa and other parts of Europe, and then to the Americas as well. And then they say that there was a second one, and which began at the latter part of the 19th century through the 20th century. That's what they say. And so that's why they started to discover, how they were going to build road network, started to build cities, better sewage system, You know, they started to discover the combustion engine, electricity, started to construct, because now they had the industries to make the machine part that could assemble plant to mass produce. So at that point, they started. Now, where was Africa? At this point, where was Africa? Africa was still a colony, and people were still fighting for independence. So when they were going through the second revolution, the first revolution is where they discovered the steam engine, and when they started to look at drilling machine, lathe machine, boring, boring machine, things like that, that could just manufacture a machine, or just any parts that they wanted, they could just do it. And because it was a discovery, and they shared it among themselves, especially the Europeans. And even at this point, China was still sleeping somewhere. India was not part. So the second revolution, which is the co-industrialization. I'm saying this to say that our current president is saying that one district, one factory is going to be an industrial revolution. Is it really the case? Is it really how industrialization is done? And where is the workforce? And which part are we still going to depend on who? Is it just we are going to just process some, second grade product, or just putting some parts together and we are calling them industrialization, or is industrialization proper? Because I think that there are factories, and there are businesses, and there are things that we call them with wrong understanding. So you can see, if my friend who produces a Tom Brown says that he's a manufacturer, he's not a manufacturer. He's he makes Tom Brown. He's not manufacturing. Manufacturing is a whole different thing. That even engineers, they have to reconsider their understanding of it. So the second revolution brought where they started to look at the railways, the power lines, the electricity. They started to set testers where they could produce a lot of clothes and things like that. And that's, along those lines, then South Africa and India and all those countries also joined them. Now, these are data that you can find on the internet, and separate them yourself, because we continue to ask ourselves questions as Africans. We are trying to see how come that the rest of the world was going and we were sleeping. Now, it is not like it's been 2,000 years old. But most of these things are just around 100 to 200 years. A lot of the advancements in technology that we see have just come around just about 200 to, less than that. Let's say even the second one, it's still not been that much. It's not. We still have, for instance, Germany is after the Second World War. Everything was bent down. After the Second World War, they started to redevelop their country. The problem has been that we did not have good number of people who were trained with the requirement for development in terms of trying to produce things through engineering, through technology, through science, through mathematics. And we're still struggling even with that number. And people continue to ask questions that why do we have engineers who cannot manufacture anything? We can't manufacture because the basis of manufacturing, we still trying not to know. Because if I buy components and I come to put them together, on the loose side, it will say that it's manufacturing. But really it's not. You're just assembling. So the understanding of it has eluded us, really. And then, people are small scale industries. You see the words that we use: small scale industry, semi scale. We use a lot of words to convince ourselves as if we have had the foundation rightly set. And that's where the problem is, because we have not had the foundation really understood in terms of industry, in terms of engineering, in terms of science, in terms of technology. Now, if you look at the current situation now, most of them are not going through that, where they are using steam engine and cutting machine part are going through with a lot of oil. No, we are the ones at that stage now where we are doing. If you go to Swami now, you can see a lot of things where the car comes is an accident car. We go to somewhere and go, you know, like if your engine has ever got broken or bent, they say they will take it and send it to the machine shop and those are the kind of activities that we are doing now with physical hands and physical labor. Much of those things now are being done with computers. They have set a lot of computer things and a lot of automations to produce some of these things. They have moved. The thing is that, are we going to go through all those stages, or we are just going to catch them somewhere? That one, I don't know. That one, I don't know if you know. But just as the Chinese, it's not like the Chinese were that much intelligent. They just copied. Just saw them and copied. So maybe we should also look at that, because it's not 1,000 years, just around 100 years. Even when we were in school, I remember very well, 2001, 2000, and 1999, in a whole floor, only one guy had mobile phone. And I think it was is it Mobitel or something like that. Just around 15 years now, maybe, was it 16 years? Now people with smartphone, it's as if you have used it for 100 years. No, technology has just doubled. So there's a lot that we can catch up within maybe the next 50, the next 100 years. Now the problem is, where do we start and where do we catch them? Because now they are going into AI, they are going to a lot of things, they are going to high-tech manufacturing, they are going to high-tech industrialization. There are a lot of things now. They are pushing a lot into data, into the internet. There are things that have changed drastically from where they started. Africa has not gone through that at all. Not from the steam engine even, through the things that like the physical manufacturing, through where they are now. We have not gone through that. So I don't know. Maybe the great minds should be able to tell us where we should start and where we should not start. The Indians possibly have tried to follow that. The Chinese have done that, and I think that they have done it very well. Now they compete a lot. Maybe we should look at meeting them at the top. Not as consumers, just as we just consume the telephone. We did not use the telephone lines. A lot of us did not have telephone lines in our home. And when I was growing up, I didn't have telephone lines, but we just happened to have mobile phone. So we didn't have to build all this infrastructure, physical infrastructure, to have the ringtone, the ring phone. Same. But I think that we're just trying to catch them with the use of it and not with the making of it. And it's still because we have not given a lot of significance, a lot of importance to engineering education, to the science education, to the technology, to the mathematics. So we think that we can produce a lot of these guys who are doing psychology, philosophy, social science, history. They are important, but I think that the numbers are offset. The numbers are so much for a country which wants to develop. A country must look at maybe 5% doing these courses, and the 95% becoming the force that will create that future that we want to go. Because you cannot say you want to industrialize when you are not preparing the technical minds. You need the technical minds in any industry. You need engineers, you need the technology. Even if it's computer that you want to focus on, you need a lot of people who can do the programming. When you do philosophy, nobody's teaching you programming. And this is coming from how the education was introduced to us. It was introduced to us just for us to speak the English, but not us to train minds to solve problems. So if you look at the guys who came to meet the British, look at how they talk. They talk the Queen's English very much, but put the problem there. That's why we have not. So when it got to the 50s, where the Asians were trying to catch up, mainly, the Chinese had done that maybe before, maybe 10, 20 years before the 50s. When it got to the 50s, where the Asians were catching up, and it got to maybe the 1960s, we were fighting for independence. We had it, and then another problem struck, which was the coup d'etats. So the coup d'etats, for instance, the coup d'etats for Ghana happened and continued on for the next, maybe after Nkrumah to all these guys, till the Lawrence came to stabilize it. That was just about 30 years. So the 30 years where the others were still running, we were still going through coup d'etat, coup d'etat, coup d'etat. So we didn't catch up with the first industrial something because we were still under colonization and the slavery. When the second one happened, we were still going through a lot of nonsense. Coup d'etat. And then just about Y2K, 2000 years, the year 2000, the internet was not that powerful, was not strong, was still evolving. They were not above us. A lot of the things that we are using here now, the Facebook, the WhatsApp, the e-commerce that have come up, all these things just happened the last 15 years. You just see it. When you were in school, did you have a Facebook? No, I mean, not when I was in the 2000s and 1997. And no, mobile phones had just come. You could go when you wanted a chip from Ghana Telecom, they were selling them heavy. And if you wanted to make call around that time, you go to Adum and you could ring it for 20 times before you could get through the lines. There was no smartphone. And yet we are not caught up. Why we keep dropping is because the base of it was innovation, was creativity. And much of it were coming from the engineering, industrialization. We're coming from the technology. People with a lot of the people should have had that kind of mind, at least to work in industries like that. We should have had business people who should have been in this kind of industries, and maybe somebody had a car business and we were producing a lot of these guys from these schools, technical schools. But when they brought, even the JSS, they were teaching us how to cook and then how to sew. These were not skills that you could use to work on a machine if there were ever even industries. And I think that a large part of the reason is that majority of our leaders have also not come from these disciplines. They have not come from the engineering. Majority of our leaders have not come from the technology. Majority of our leaders have not come from the mathematics and the sciences. Majority of our leaders have been lawyers and economists. And I'm not saying those are not good. It's good, but we should have had some of them from this, because they would easily understand the manufacturing and maybe the industry and how you will need to prepare the whole force of people to feed that. Even in 2018, I'm still struggling to see if we have found a path for us to fight the poverty. Because without these things, the poverty will be tough. They will stay for a long time. Because these courses, the science, the technology, the engineering, they're supposed to produce people who can think and create. The fact is that, it's not that I'm biased, but the fact is that if you have an engineering mind and you put him in an industry, after a while he'll be able to do a lot of things. The reason these engineers and these technology people, these mathematics are not doing that much is because there's not that industry for them to go straight after college to go through apprenticeship. There are not. But if you had a lot of industries and you just took the mechanical engineer from tech, you took the agric engineer from tech to say go and work in this tractor manufacturing company or bulldozer or car manufacturing company, after 5 years the guy will become an expert. But now we are producing them and they have to go and work as car sales engineers. That's the best that they are doing now. Or maybe they work in industry and they are maintenance engineers. That's what we are doing now. Because the industries have not been created for that. And who should create the industry? I think there's a mess. The engineers themselves will not just be able to create industry, because to create industry is a business. And having an engineering skill does not mean that you can create a business. So it's a mix. It's a mix of entrepreneurship. It's a mix of the technical understanding. And maybe if you were producing a lot of them, maybe out of 1,000, you would have had one who could have these kind of things mixed. Then we could have somebody like the way the Americans were able to have people like that who could set industries and change. And then we could also have inventors. We could have produced a lot if we were producing a lot of these guys. Maybe not out of university, but even in apprenticeship. If we had organized, say, some kind of business, some kind of industry, and we had brought a lot of research into it, probably would have produced a lot of people who could be thinking on their feet. And so the way it stands now, the definitions are not clear. And I don't even think a parent should ask themselves, what course should my child read if you are in Africa? I don't think that should ever come up. 90% of the children should be doing these courses. The engineering, the science, the technology, the mathematics. That's what they should be doing. You should not be asking, oh, my son wants to become a chef. How many people can he cook? But if he's able to come up with a food processing industry, there are so many that you can feed, because it's an industry, it's automation, it's production. And so now they are in the digital place. The internet has brought a lot of changes. There's a lot happening around the world, and we're still struggling to catch up. The Africans are still struggling to catch up, because the mind, it's still not dawned on us that this is what we really needed. And so maybe I don't have the statistics, but if you put, let's say, if you have 1 million people who have gone to school, maybe just 1 or 2% would have this kind of education, instead of us having them in the 90s, in 90%. Because then you produce them like that, and out of that, even if you don't have industries, one of them will have that basis, because it's not been part of us for how many years? For all these years, when they were producing the steam engine, when they were producing all these things, we were not part of it. We were still under subjugation. We were not. And then when it got to a point that we had our independence, and maybe just that time that South Africans started to also industrialize, and the Chinese started to train a lot of their people, because they were not under domination. Our people, Kwame Nkrumah got it. He started some things, and then coup d'etat came. 30 years, we were still not conscious. We're still sleeping. We're still not stable. And so the science education has not been given that much attention to. As a matter of fact, these lawyers who are all politicians everywhere, they really think that the law is the only education, because they think that once they're able to set this constitution and the policy, things will work. And you have tried that for how many years? Things will not work, because you need people to innovate, to create. You need people with technical skills that you can put on a plant to operate, put on a lathe machine to operate, put on a drilling machine to operate. Somebody who can think and develop something. And the base of it is what? Is the engineering, is the sciences, is the mathematics. And so tech, that should have been producing a lot of us. Tech now is even producing business people, business and law. And a lot of our mates who even had first degree engineering, a lot of them are working in a bank, or they have gone to do law. My good friend has just moved on. Because why? They say that man must survive, because there's no clarity and there's not much importance that we are giving, because the fact is we don't even know what it would take for us to develop. Really, we don't. So when it comes to whichever industry, you will need these minds. And when they are talking of technology and computer coding, how are we going to use it to develop? Because if you talk of programming, yes, you program. You have a child who can program very well, but where is the industry for him to apply? He will move to America and go and work with NASA. So the clear definition is not there, and largely because most of our leaders did not come from this background. So they understand only policy. They understand Go to parliament. If you say these things, say, oh yeah, it's one of those things. That's why we have the MVTI, that's what they will say. That's why we have the MVTI, so that they train them to become carpenters and become mason and become, now they haven't added cooking to the MVTI. Listen, Africans have not thought through what it will take for us to develop, especially when it comes to developing a lot of things ourselves. And until we are able to know how to come out to develop the parts, let's say, take the construction industry, for instance. If you want to mold a block machine, and let's say manual block machine, do we have people who can easily think on their feet, that we have given some kind of science, engineering training to? Or the guy only went to the weather, learned the thing, and he's now a master, he has apprentice. That's the kind of structure that we have. It's not like the mechanical engineer from tech could easily set up his own something, and if you need a block machine, he'll be able to do it for you. And if you need it automated, he could easily do it for you. And even if you had to add some kind of computer, something to it, he could easily link it. The link is not there. So the other man who can easily do something which is manual, when you move it into the automation, it becomes trouble. He can't relate. He can't even understand what you're saying. Precision is low because he did not go through this kind of education. He did not go through the science, the engineering, the mathematics. He did not go through that. He just happened to finish SHS or JHS, and he wanted to learn something, and so he went to become a welder. So he can't even read the drawings. Are these the people that we are going to industrialize with? To be difficult. That's why they continue to grow. And if you don't study the data, you may think that the West, especially Europe, has been developed for thousands of years. It's a lie. They have not been developed for thousands of years. As a matter of fact, they started, I think that is, they gathered a lot of the money to invest in companies and invest in innovation and expand, especially Britain, when they had a lot of money from this trade that they had done for years. They don't want to say it, they deny it. But really, if they could develop that quickly, why didn't they develop way before, when they had come to Africa to extract a lot of the things that they extracted, especially the human force and the human brains? It's not just, they didn't just take the physical strength, they also extracted the brains, but they would put their names on them. So the 17th century, mid part to the latter part of the 18th century, that is what, the 19th century, sorry, that the 18th and the 19th century, that's when they started to come up with the so-called Industrial Revolution, the first century. Now, when it was getting to the latter part of the 19th, the 1999 and the 19th, they started to come with the second one. And yet Africa was still fighting for independence. So there was a mix, and we didn't even have a lot of science training, science education. So when the missionaries came and they started to teach us, they said that they were going to send us to school. Really, it was not for you to become an engineer or a technologist or scientist or something like that. You were just so that you could read their Bible for them and take notes. And that's not the kind of education that you give to any people who you would want to develop and grow and fight and use their mind to create their, to create their own systems. So which means that we are yet to go through that after 300 years. We really yet to go through these phases. The Indians have tried it, and I think it's working for them partly. The Chinese have done well in terms of them picking all this, because they have picked almost every bit. They have picked the technology, they have picked the engineering, they have picked the sciences. I mean, if you go to most universities around the world now, you can see that the Chinese are doing a lot of these courses. A lot of these courses are being done by the Chinese. The Africans are doing PhDs in things that we don't need in our future, because there's no clarity. So to the average African, he can just do anything and come and say that, oh, I'm a consultant in conflict resolution. How are we going to industrialize? How are you going to grow, develop as a people? You are saying conflict resolution. How many of them? You have thousands of them. And so we instead of them going to learn No, you have first degree. Go, if you want to live in America, go and work in these industries. At least come out with something. You can steal something for us. If our government, because as a matter of fact, our government should be the ones sending us to these industries. If it's not in America, at least send us to China. Send a lot of us to China. Go and learn, because they will send them to go and learn. There's nobody who owns technology anyway, because it's just miss some piece of everybody's contribution. Nobody owns any science theory. They say that they discovered it. It's not true. And nobody discovered anything. It's just somebody taught you. That's why you're able to see something. That's not meaning, because you're not an island. So it's connected. So Africa can go to China and learn. Can go anywhere and learn, so that you can at least start to think on your feet and manufacture some of the machines ourselves. If Kantanka is saying that he's manufacturing car in a stricter sense, that is not so. It's not. He's assembling them. He's putting them together. He didn't manufacture the engine, and he doesn't have to manufacture the engine anyway. But at least the components should have come from the country, not imported. Another person should be the one working on the pistons. Another person should be the one working on the, let's say, the rings or the camshaft. Somebody should be. It should be all these components for the car to be complete should be coming. So the seat should have been made in another company in Ghana. The light should have been made from another company. Then we say that at least we are trying to organize our industry. So if you go to the let's say the petrochemical, same. But until we get the mechanical aspect right in terms of the machining, how we produce the tools. Let's say you go to construction site, are we able to produce the bits ourselves, or we import them? We import all of them. The bits, the cutting edge, the drilling machine, the let's say the planing machine, all those. Can we make them ourselves, even if it's not accurate? Can it work without harming human lives? Then we start to say that we are trying to think and work somewhere. And this, if you go to any industry, or if you go to any discipline in China, they have somebody who's doing that. So you go to the furniture side, they have a whole lot of industries. Those who are just assembling, and those who are producing the right tools for the industry. Those who produce the machines themselves. And now they have moved even to computers, serious computers. And we have not gone there. We are sleeping. Sleepy. So when Nanado says that he's coming to do one district, one something factory for industrialization, to spell out to start Ghana's industrialization, that is really not the case. That's not the case. They are just going to produce finished product. So they are going to produce water. They're going to produce clothes. But the plant that will be responsible for this, can we produce them ourselves? That plant that you are going to put there to produce the chemical. If you are importing them, you can say that you are really so it's a big work, but the technology is available. It just calls for somebody with will to say that we want to start somewhere. Other than that, we are just mixing some things and producing them to say that we are industry. The way we call some things industries. We are yet to go through that, because it's a chain. It's a chain. So I don't know whether the technology. So the focus has been, okay, now let's catch them with the internet. And now where you see where they are trying to drop the human factor, and they are trying to automate a lot of things. Can we catch them? Maybe there. I don't know. But maybe if we start to produce a lot of the sciences, a lot of the technology, a lot of the people who are doing the maths, the physics, the chemistry, that should be it. And maybe if you equip them well, but I will not even look at the library. Just produce. Instead of them going to learn cooking, let them produce, because you are many. Just so the secondary school, a lot of them should be just sciences. And the fact is that if you meet the average science person who is reading at the last of the class, the bottom of the last person in the class is still far better than the first one reading literature and Shakespeare. It's true, because then the sciences, the engineering, you are given problems to solve. So you use your brain. You are not told just to read. Maybe you may not be able to come out with a physical product to represent what they've been teaching you, but at least you'll be able to ask questions, because when they give you math problem, you're thinking on your feet with a formula. And that's the kind of education that you give to the people. So the importance of mass education is everything. It's the base for us to industrialize. It's the base. And maybe they were intentional not to have given us that from the start. That's why our premier university didn't start with science and technology. Legon didn't. It started with philosophy and psychology and Greek and Arabic and those things. And Kwabena was very happy with that. Kwabena was very happy with that. So the problem has been there. And that's why we are producing a lot of lawyers and talkers. Producing a lot of lawyers who can put numbers together. They're in the parliament, they put contract there, somebody's cheating them, they can't even read the numbers. And they will not give it to somebody who can also read the numbers. That's what I don't understand. When I was watching, I remember when they took President Mahama to court, Nana Addo did that, and when it came to the mass, then I saw how much the lawyers and the judges are very much uncomfortable with numbers. And yet these people are sitting on business cases with numbers. Danger. Danger. So a developing country like ours, developing continent like ours, 90% of our forces now must have primary science, engineering, technology, mathematics kind of education. It should not be optional. Then after that, if they want to do anything, let them go and do. But at least we should get a good number of them. Good number of them. A lot of our people. Tech should not be having this. It should be having a lot of engineers, especially the mechanical side, because that's where the foundation is. It's not really the construction. Because what is a civil engineer if he doesn't have tools to work with? If the civil engineer does not have the materials that are coming out of the mechanic side, he can't work. So who is the electrical engineer when the machines are not able to produce the parts that he needs to work with? So the base of it is really the mechanical engineering, the agric engineering, those who are coming out with the machines to produce the machine parts for us to put any machine together to do any good work for us. There should be many. But now we are producing petroleum engineers, we have scattered everything. Meanwhile, the base of it is still not clear. And this is Africa for us. And who are the people sitting down to think? You see the way people are very much happy when it comes to science quiz on TV. Hey, my school won. Really? Go and see. Out of 1,000 people in that school, maybe just 50 are doing science. The rest are doing something else. With a country like ours, and you go to the people that are manufacturing, the place that we are going to import every day. We go there every day to import. What do you think they are producing? They have a lot of them who can work in industries. They have a lot of them who can set up industries, who can produce machines, who can produce plants. That's why they are industrializing. It's not because they what? You think that they taught all of them philosophy? That's why they are industrializing. No. So we have produced it. Once we think that once somebody goes through university education, he is educated. So you see the way people will come and quote and speak English. If you doubt it, to meet anybody from Lagos, you'll be shocked. The kind of English that they will speak to you, they know that they're educated. It's not really much of the information that they have given to these guys. We really don't need them. Don't need. Really don't need. Those are facts. We don't need a lot of these guys from all these new universities who are doing all these kind of courses, my business administration and nursing and all this. It's only they only reflect people who don't know where they are going and who really don't even understand what it takes to go where they are, where they want to go, and who don't know the problems that they confront now and the stages and the processes that we have to go through to develop as a continent. We don't know. So the very much asset, the very asset that we have, the brains of our people, the people that we have, and the kind of training we have to give to them for us to create the future that we want, we don't know. So we have experts over, we don't know. So they talk and give you all kind of assimilations and scenarios, and they have no clue of what these nations have gone through to develop. These nations have gone through to develop. So hopefully we will get a president. I think Leonardo is trying, who will see the agency of it. Who will see the agency of it. Because the people have not lived with technology for 1,000 years. No. They have not lived with technology for 1,000 years. So when the Europeans are talking as if they have been industrialized for so many years, it's a lie. They just got there. And even that is after they had come for slaves and taken a lot of people's wealth. And when they had become wealthy, they could invest in their businesses and use a lot of our brains and hide them and deny us of our intellectual property, much of it. And they started to say that they started the industrialization, and it spread to America. It became they built steel plants. They built a lot of machine shops to produce the parts that were needed for them to set up productions in various kinds of industries, whether it's chemical, whether it's textile, whether it's mining, even in construction. Because once they got the base right, it's not difficult. Once you get the base right, other things come. It's like when you want a carpenter to do anything for you. Once he has the tools, he can cut. Even if it's wrong, you can correct it. So once they had the lathe machines, the drilling machines and all those, they could start. And once they had the energy, the power to fuel whatever that they wanted to produce, that was it. And then out of it, the electricity came. Then they started to, expand a lot of things. And then they went into electronics, and they started to spread. Now they are into guitar something. And now the internet has exploded. A lot of things have changed, and our people, majority of us, are just consumers, because the base, which is producing a critical mass of the science minds, the engineering minds, the technology minds, the mathematics mind, we just giving them a portion, little, maybe 20%, 10%. It should be everybody. Produce them, let them understand it, and that is what will reduce the superstition. The more you are producing science minds and technology, the more they're able to separate some things, the superstition will come down. Because you'll be able to understand how things work and work better. You'll be able to understand how things are produced and produce better. And if we happen to have industries, we will have the force. But as it stands now, if you say that you are going to produce a lot of industries, you're going to come up with a lot of industries, do we really think that we have the technical minds to manage them and to feed them? Do we really think that? Have we produced enough people? So the industrialization is a must. It's a must. But I don't think that majority of the people in charge making decisions see it like that. So the things that they don't have to call as industries, they call them industries, agro processing industries. Small scale industries. We happy ourselves with terminologies that don't mean much, because you have not studied the process. And so my name is Obindako. Study them, read about them. It's not that the Europeans are naturally brilliant. They are not. Just some things just happen. And it's not like we are sleeping. No, it's because we were not given the foundations. The foundations were not set. The foundations were not right. And I don't think there was any time that anybody really set the foundation, at least with respect to Ghana. With respect to Ghana, where somebody set the foundation to say that 90% of our youth, or the people that we have to send to school, must go and do this, because that's what we need. And so for the next 50 years or the next 100 years, That is what we want to. Africa is not just going to develop because time is going on. No. Those who are deceiving us to say that, oh, we will just develop. It's a prophecy. God has said it somewhere. It's not true. We have to work. We have to have the capacity to develop. We have to create the basis to develop. We have to get the people with the right mindset to develop, or we will not develop. We will not develop. So we are producing everything. We are producing everything. We just say that we produce everything. No, we are producing all kind of things. Now, if you watch TV, there are all kind of experts on every topic, and most of them we don't know. We don't really need. What we need is to be able to set the foundation to produce a lot of things ourselves. A lot of the things that we need ourselves. The pipes that we need to set the sewage system right. The water system. Those components. We should be able to have the plants which we manufactured ourselves to set them. Then in that case we are thinking. But if you need a dialysis machine and you go to India to go and bring it and you repair it, very far from industrialization. Very far. If you need a let's say concrete mixer, automated one, and we have to go to China to go and bring it, we are deceiving ourselves. At least at a point we should be saying that this one was made here, even if it doesn't work well. So it's a breakdown, and once you've been introduced to something for a very long time, it becomes difficult for you to even question it, and it becomes normal to us. And so we were all born into it, and we can't blame anybody. And so we're born into it. We were born into this culture, and you did not even know that this is what we will all need to develop as a country. So all that they told us is that once we go to vote every 4 years and there is no fighting, we will develop. Policymakers, we will develop. So we have had policymakers for a very long time, and we are yet to develop because we have not given a lot of importance to the science education, to the engineering. And even the people who are doing the engineering now, when they finish the first degree, they don't continue because they don't know what to do with it. So thank you very much for watching. So if they are going up now they have internet, they have a lot of things, complex software applications, smartphone. It's grown, and now most of their manufacturing is less human interference, and we are yet to go through even the first stage. We just have to cross them somewhere and at least have some of the things that we have to do ourselves, because they talk like they've been doing this for when did you see when was the last time you saw a smartphone? Just the other time. It's not like they have been doing it for 200 years. No. Even the mass production of cars, when did it happen? Just the other time. It's not, and this we should put in the mind of our people, that it's not like they came to meet this. It's been just at the turn of century, and it appears that just at the latter part of the previous century and the beginning of the next century, something significant happens. So for the last 300 years or so, just at the latter part of the previous century and the beginning of it, something significant happens in terms of technology, in terms of engineering, in terms of, So if you look at it, the last part, you could see that the internet came just at the latter part of the century, the 20th one, and then the beginning of the 21st century, that's where it exploded. So you can see what the internet has come to do. It has come to change business. It has come to change everything. Information. We will not be talking if it were not the internet. So a lot of things. And so I see that by the end of this 21st century to the beginning of the 22nd century, something significant could shift. And that is where Africa should come in. Africa should come in. Just at that point, that shift, we should be part of it. But how do we, if you don't have our people prepared? because it's all, if you look at it, it's all science, it's all technology, it's all engineering, it's all mathematics, it's all physics, chemistry. Those are the things that you're using. So we should be part of the game. We should be part of the game. Innovation, creativity, just at the time. Just look. When the steam engine was just at the end of the 17th to the beginning of the 18th. Then, if you look at Ford and all those guys, go and look at it. Just at the end of the 80s to the beginning of the 90s, something significant happened. And all these years, the Africans were still under subjugation, were still under control, and we had our independence, and the people who led us paid not that much attention to making sure that a lot of our people will go into science and technology, and even the coup d'etats will not even allow us to stay, so that our police people could be, our military could be making a lot of things. Anyway, so maybe there's hope. I think so. There's hope if you find out things and find them rightly, and start to develop a lot of things ourselves, and not give all the heroic achievement to only Europeans, because that's what they have done to us. They have told us that they discovered everything and we didn't discover anything. So why should you even pay attention to any of those in the first place? So science, technology, engineering, they're very much important. But you have to stabilize the mind of your people first, for them to accept themselves and for them to be a strong people, that they are not inferior in terms of this creation, because they are going to inject a lot of these discoveries and tell you that they did everything. And that becomes a problem for us. And the moment you accept that your people were not wise, then who else cannot control you? Everybody else can control you. So thank you very much. So give attention to it. If you're going to send your child to school, even if your child loves drawing and all those, let them do some of these things alongside the maths, the physics, the chemistry. Alongside, it will help them to do a lot and to help them to think properly more. And I think that a lot of the studying of European history and Shakespeare, they are just waste of time. That's why we don't know what to do with them. Go and look for a lot of these graduates who are looking for jobs, and most of them are coming from these kind of courses. Okay, because there's little attention given to how to solve problems in such courses, other than talking. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you.